Hi everyone, I'm Gautam aka The Seeker of Wisdom. I'm a manifestation coach, and in this video we're going to be talking about how I manifest things and how I go about the process. Now before I do so, I'd like to remind you guys I am available for coaching, so I offer hourly, monthly, email and DM coaching. The link will be in the description down below for an FAQ page where you guys will have all the answers you need, and thereafter you guys can reach out to me via Instagram or email for pricing information and to figure out what plan may be suitable for you. I also have a Facebook group where I upload resources from time to time, as well as you guys can ask me questions anonymously if you wish to do so. And I also have a mailing list where I post articles from time to time, as well as my latest offers for coaching. In addition to that, I also have a Manifest Your SP course, which is designed for beginners and veterans alike. It has PDFs, videos, and quizzes and worksheets to aid you along the way. It goes into detail as to why you are doing whatever you are doing and how to make your life easy, and it really helps you to simplify and refine your manifestation routine in order to manifest your SP easily and effectively and keep them for good, because that's the most important thing, right? So again, all the links are in the description down below, so be sure to check it out. So without further ado, let's get to it. So what kind of prompted this video was I've had questions from time to time, right? Like where people will ask me, hey, like what's your technique, or how do you go about the process? And I figured, you know what, let's just make a video on it, because this was something that a lot of you have been asking me. So yeah, the way I go about my process is I choose like a few techniques that has worked for me, and I kind of stick with them really. As you guys know, in one of my previous videos I mentioned that I kind of took a break from like law of attraction in my manifestation journey, not law of assumption, law of attraction, right? um, and back then I didn't know about law of assumption, so I kind of just did my own thing, kind of like experimented what works and what doesn't. And that's something that I would encourage you guys to do, right? Go out there and experiment, like try to see what sticks, and and like kind of reverse engineer the process and see what works for you in a repeated fashion. And that's how you kind of figure out, okay, what works for you, right? And a success in one area of your life with a particular technique may not necessarily translate into success in another area of your life. So that's one of those things that you have to keep in mind, right? So that's one thing I realized, right? If let's say affirmations works for me, say in finance, for example, it may not necessarily transfer to say SP, for example, right? The process is different, right? And I always say this because your self concept is different for maybe finances compared to SP, and that's why the technique that you're doing also varies a little, right? So that's what I have found in my experience was different techniques works for different areas of my life. But that said, like I do find myself using just a few techniques, and these like about four techniques has worked for me consistently, and I can rely on these techniques to kind of keep me in the end state of mind. There are some things that I don't do, and I'll explain it as well. But again, this is a very personal kind of thing where what works for me may not work for you, and what works for you may not necessarily work for me. And I'll explain like what I mean by that with certain techniques, because I don't want you guys to think like, okay, if he isn't doing this, does that mean it's ineffective for me, right? That's why I'm putting it out there, because like what works for you may not work for me, and vice versa, right? So like really, so take this and like experiment, and kind of like make customize it to your own needs basically. So one of the techniques that I use is affirmations, right? So it's a very standard one. I always joke that affirmations are like the AK-47s of manifesting, right? Because it's reliable, it's simple to use, it's not too complicated or whatsoever. It's just like constant repetition, and as long as you don't think otherwise, like after affirming, you're good basically, right? So affirmations are one thing that I find myself using quite a lot actually, especially in my early days of manifesting, right? Some of the things that like I've manifested a lot of like favorable circumstances through affirmations, right? If I wanted something to happen, I used to tell myself like, I still do tell myself like, okay, may everything be favorable for me, and one way or another things do like line up in such a way that everything does end up favorably for me. So I would say like affirmations are something that I always like kind of use, and I really love using affirmations, right? Be it in written format, or just saying it out loud, or just repeating it in my mind. I feel like any mode of affirming really kind of works there. So yeah, affirmations really works for me. The other thing, as I said, because I like to write my affirmations, I also like to script from time to time. So when I script, I don't necessarily write a page long of like what my ideal life looks like or something like that. But what I do is just write down my affirmations, right? Or if I have a limiting belief or something, I'll write them down, strike them off, and write an opposite favorable statement instead, right? So those are things that I do. And I feel like writing down really ingrains it in my mind, and it's really effective for me. So I do like scripting like that way. I don't necessarily like write like ideal scenarios or things like that. But I do like to write maybe like letter from a person to myself if I want to like revise the situation. I've done that a couple times before. That's why I'm always an advocate for the letter technique that Neville always preaches, is because it has worked for me as well. um, so I have had situations where the person will parrot the exact same thing to me, down the road, maybe weeks. It may take weeks, it may take months, but at the end of the day, they will eventually end up telling me what I exactly wrote in the letter. So that has happened a few times, and I'll definitely go into detail one day about those stories as well. So scripting is one thing that I do. Another thing I like to do is visualizing, right? So I love to visualize because I've been like a daydreamer ever since I was a kid, right? Like I'm one of those kids who will always like stare out in the window, or like just like stare into blank space, because there's always some sort of thing that's going on in my head, right? So ever since I was a kid, like I used to play with like action figures and everything, and I used to like mumble to myself, and my mom would be concerned because like she would be like, "Is he okay? Like what is he doing?" Right? So like that's the thing, and I explained to my mom like just like a couple months back that actually like I was in a completely different world, right? So I would watch cartoons and stuff like that, and then I would actually like reenact some of those things. I would be playing scenarios in my mind, and I would enact those things with those action figures, right? And I think that's how like a lot of boys play with their action figures. I don't think kids these days play with action figures anymore, which is kind of sad actually. But yeah, like I used to like have this like astronaut toy, and I still do, and I would like go on adventures in my mind like with this little guy, right? Like he would be on a completely different planet. My sofa would be like a Martian crater, and like he would be jumping around. It was like, if I think about it right now, it's really funny. But I've always had that kind of visualizing ability, and so I love to visualize, right? I know for some folks out there, even some of my clients actually, they're unable to visualize, and you know what? It's fine. Like if it works for you, it works for you. That's why I said like what works for me may not necessarily work for you, but I use visualizing in a way like to kind of prime my brain for whatever I want, and I always like see it in my mind, and I kind of like live in the situation. I remember manifesting a group of friends through this technique, just kind of like visualizing what would it be like to hang out with a couple of people who kind of like look out for one another, who have that kind of like community kind of spirit, right? And I loved it. And like 6 months down the road, I when I went through different schools, I actually met a couple of people who were exactly the same thing, and we had a blast, right? So I manifested that through visualizing, right? um, I visualized being a YouTuber, for example, right? This was a huge one. I wanted to be a YouTuber for a while now, right? Like this was even before I discovered manifesting, I guess. But I never really kind of thought like what I would be doing. But like this was definitely a manifestation for me, because the fact that I'm a YouTuber right now is definitely like I used to dream about this. I used to think like, okay, what would it be like if this were true, kind of thing, and I used to visualize that. So visualizing really works for me, and because I'm also one of those like quote unquote creative types, as one of my friends put it, right? Oh, you're like the creative type. So like I'm a artist, and I like studied motion graphics, and also I do a lot of digital art and stuff like that, right? So visualizing wise, I was really good at it, so for a long time, and so I kind of used that to my advantage. So I would, like, visualize ideal scenarios, the best case scenarios, um, and if I lose any items, I'll just like visualize myself holding on to those, and I have found those items back with ease. So that's how I kind of use visualizing. And last but not least, I also like to use inner conversations. So I like to turn around unfavorable situations with people, unfavorable interactions with inner conversations. I would hear them say, we love you, you are cherished, you are loved, you are treasured, and that kind of works. And that has been really effective for me. So these are the kind of like techniques that I use manifesting wise. The thing that I don't use, that I've seen a lot of people use, is actually affirmation tapes. So I did try affirmation tapes, if I'm being really honest. But the problem was, like, I think I tried it for a week or two, I believe, right? And the thing was, I was having nightmares, like, and I know it's part and parcel of the process, but the thing, I was kind of like, didn't really, like, it didn't click for me because of my sleep cycles and so on. I'm a type of guy who doesn't like to really like strap on to things, or I don't like to use Bluetooth while like sleeping, because I was just like like not into using Bluetooth while I was like sleeping and stuff, right? Because I know a lot of people use the headbands and everything. If it resonates with you, by all means go ahead. And I know that there are people who live by this, and people have manifested a lot of things through this, right? It just doesn't work with me personally, because I'm a kind of guy who kind of sleeps in a pitch black room. And even if you like see one tiny dot like of light, right? Like, let's say you're charging something and then you see that like tiny dot or of light, right? I'll get distracted. I can't sleep, right? So, and it also works for noises as well. Like, if I hear any noise, like even the like something like this, someone just maybe drop something or something like that, right? Like, I won't be able to sleep. So I really need my quiet. Is all I'm getting to, right? So it really didn't work with me. So I kind of just left it, honestly. And I don't mind like meditations, like 20-minute meditations, like prior to sleeping. That I don't mind, but like 8-hour affirmation tapes and stuff like that, no, I can't. Like, honestly, like when I wake up, I felt super disoriented. My ears was ringing, and I know these are like common symptoms of that, but like I'm like, no thanks. And again, this is one of those things where I tried it and it didn't resonate with me, and I kind of left it, right? Because I'm the rationale for me at the end of the day came down to, okay, how would have never done this, right? Like, would, because it kind of seemed like I was doing too much to manifest whatever I wanted, and never always visualizes before he goes to bed and stuff, right? Yeah, and I thought to myself, like, okay, would never be doing such a thing, like, would he be listening to affirmation tapes before he go to bed? Is that something he would recommend? And I kind of didn't really resonate with that, coming from that perspective as well. Not that you have to do exactly what Neville did. Again, what works for him may not work for you, but I just kind of came from that perspective, and I was like, yeah, it kind of doesn't really resonate with me. And I was like, you know what, let's just leave it and just stick to what has worked, right? Stick to tried and true methods, so to speak. And yeah, so really that's something that I do. I also use vision boards as well. So my vision boards are with like pictures and quotes and like affirmations. Those are things that I just put up there, and just let it be. And I look at it from time to time, and I know that my subconscious is being imprinted with all those like imagery. So that's something that I do. And I try to maintain a favorable mental diet as much as I can, because you can do all the techniques in the world, but if your mental diet isn't favorable, then everything is wasted, right? Because your mental diet, if you're thinking unfavorably throughout the day after you do your techniques, it just kind of cancels each other out, and you're going to be kind of stuck with your dominant pattern. Most likely it's the unfavorable old story that is currently your dominant thought pattern, right? So those are the things that I try to maintain. I make sure that I'm speaking well about whatever I want to desire, like manifest. I don't like to ask like when or how in general if I want it. I assume that I already have it, and I just go about my life until I get it. So, and also one thing that I do is I feel like it's very important is going out and enjoying my life. Like I don't, and this is something that I'm like newly incorporating, if I'm being really honest, in the sense that previously with a lot of things going on in my life, I wasn't really able to like explore or go out that often. But I'm really kind of loosening up and like going out there and enjoying more in general, because that kind of like helps me to kind of detach from the process. And those are the instances where I really kind of like manifest with ease, and that's something that I do. So yeah, so those are the things that I do with regards to manifesting. If you guys have any questions, do leave it out in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to answer them as soon as I can. So guys, yeah, so we have come to this end of this video. So if this video resonated with you, be sure to drop a like and a comment down below. Turn on the bell notification so that you guys will know when I upload a new video every single week. Be sure to subscribe, guys, as it goes a long way for me, and you guys have been really supporting the channel, and I really appreciate each and every one of your support. Means the world to me, guys, so thank you so much. So guys, stay safe and happy manifesting. Peace.